Okay,
Okay.
sorry. Nice to meet you.
Good evening, Mr. Show. So I'm Ifa from College Professional
Mhm,
Mara Sri Iskandar, and I am
mhm,
English communication student. And thank you so
mhm.
much because joining me for today interview session. So
No.
before we start,
Mhm.
can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Okay. So my name is Shota. My Shota is my real name. My nickname is Sho in HelloTalk. Currently I live in Malaysia for almost 1.5 year. Because my job assignment. So I was transferred from Japan to Malaysia. So my job is I'm working as chemical engineer in Terengganu, Kemamang. And I live in Kuantan. You know Kuantan,
Yeah,
the
I know
center of
Kuantan,
Pahang.
Kuantan Pahang. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Now I live in Kuantan and then
Mm-hmm.
working with a Japanese company
Mm-hmm.
in which is located in Kemaman, Terengganu. My job assignment will be finished in August this year. So my job
Ah,
assignment is totally for 2 years. Then currently I've been here for 1.5 year.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's
So
all.
thank you so much. So are you ready for the interview session?
I think yes.
Okay, so let's begin with the first question.
Mm,
So the first question is, how
mm.
did English first arrive and spread in your country?
Yes, I just Googled on the internet, but in case of Japan, the first English come to Japan, it was 1600. Just for 400 years ago or something, when when a man navigator from England uh, came to Japan by chance, then the navigator worked for the Japanese shogun. And do you know shogun? Shogun is meaning it's Japanese society, at the top of the uh, society of samurai.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for the Japanese shogun at that time, around 400 years ago. But
Yes.
at that time, Japan closed our country, no interaction with other countries, right?
Ah, I see.
Yeah, yeah. The first Englishman come to Japan. It was
Mm-hmm.
1600, but nobody had opportunity to use English actually.
Ah,
Ye-
I see.
Yes. After 250 years later, in 19th century,
Mm-hmm.
we finally opened our country to tolerate with Western country like America,
Mm-hmm.
England.
Mm-hmm.
We had to use uh, start to learn English.
Okay.
Many people started to use English in 19th century.
Ah, okay. That's all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can
So
can can you kindly understand my English?
yes, I do. So can we proceed with the next question?
Yes, please.
Okay. So how has English learning changed in your country over time?
Okay. After we open our country,
Mm-hmm.
we have to catch up with Western technology at that time.
Okay.
Mm.
Mhm.
Uh, Around 200 years ago, in our Japanese culture
Mhm.
was already highly sophisticated, but not good enough
Mhm.
in terms of science,
Mhm.
science technology. At first, we have to catch up with Western technology.
Mhm.
Our English learning was mainly reading and writing.
Mhm.
Uh, we uh, we had we didn't have to speak or listen because in Japan only Japanese live there.
Oh yeah.
No opportunity to use English in real life.
Okay.
We concentrated on
Mhm.
reading and
Okay. Understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. But now the situation has been changing.
Mhm,
The importance of speaking and listening is getting more and more important. So
mhm,
nowadays, we in Japanese country, small children are practicing speaking and listening as well.
mm,
Uh,
that's all?
yes, is this
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Yes. So let's proceed with the next question.
Mm,
So, how important is English in your
mm,
country for people
mm.
looking for a job or career?
Yeah, so many companies need people, someone who can speak English fluently.
Mm-hmm,
So for uh, those who uh, looking for their job, the
mm-hmm,
English is very important.
mm-hmm.
But still they can get job without English skills. Uh,
Ah,
because as you know, we still don't have less opportunity to speak
mm-mm,
English
mm-mm,
in our life. That the situation is completely different from Malaysia. In case of
mm-hmm,
Malaysia, many people live in single country.
mm-hmm,
So I guess you have some opportunity to speak English in your life.
mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
uh, but that's the difference between Malaysia and Japan.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Can we move to the next question?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Do you think English
Hmm?
language is replacing or complementing your native language?
I guess no.
Mm-hmm,
We Japanese are still not good at
mm-hmm,
communicating with English.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
So
we
that's
we
mean so that's mean you don't think that English will replace your native language.
yeah no I don't think yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, that's all?
Yes.
Anything? Okay. So
Uh,
um
it's my answer okay? If you have any question, you can question me
uh,
more.
okay. Okay. So
Uh,
next, what your country people think about learning English?
as I already told you, many people
Mm-hmm,
feel English very difficult.
mm-hmm,
The our social background is different. That's the reason.
mm-hmm,
Uh, to be fluent in
mm-hmm,
English,
mm-hmm,
the only one way we have to use in our life.
mm-hmm,
That's most important. Uh, but in Japan, no opportunity, no necessity to use English as long as uh, tourists or some people foreign country
mm-hmm.
uh, speaks to us. uh, we don't speak English. So my answer is we still feel learning English rather difficult.
Okay.
How do you think? How do you think learning English? How do you think of
Um,
learning English? Is it easy?
for me, because we are in Malaysia and we have a lot of races, and so I think English is not really hard to be learning because we have an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to speak with other friends, and because we have a lot of races like Chinese, Indian, and Malay, so
Mm.
we can apply English.
Uh, Sorry, fireworks.
Okay.
But uh, but I think Indian, China, Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
Malaysia can speak Bahasa Melayu. So
Yeah.
do you really need the English as communication tool in Malaysia?
At certain place, yeah, maybe like when you go to universities or college, so English might be a lingua franca, and we will use English more than Bahasa Melayu. So that is the
Mhm.
reason why for me English is not hard to be learning in Malaysia.
Hmm. Sorry. So fireworks very noisy. So wait. I don't know why the Chinese New Year has already finished, but still many fireworks
That's
making
very.
making big sound around my house. My house is residence.
Mm-hmm.
Residence. So many people staying in in our residence. So that's why many fireworks uh, launching every night these days. Okay.
Okay, so can we begins with the third last question?
Last question. Okay.
There have three more questions.
Okay.
Okay, so have you mixed English with your own language in daily conversation, and
Mm.
why?
Mm. My answer would be no. Oh, fireworks. Sorry. So this is my personal opinion. Uh, the Japanese and English. If we compare the Japanese with English, the grammar, the word order,
Mm-hmm,
it's rather different. I
mm-hmm,
sometimes think Bahasa Melayu and English, if we compare Bahasa Melayu with English, the in some sense, the grammar and the word order seems it's similar to me.
mm, okay.
Uh, in some cases, but in case of Japan, the grammar is completely different. So it's difficult or strange to mix Japanese and English.
Understand.
My personal opinion. Okay.
So, what are English words that you use often, and why?
So I think the easy word, easy single word, are also used in Japan, just like camera,
Mm-hmm,
coffee, then
mm-hmm,
taxi, bus,
mm-hmm,
hotel. This is same things goes with Malaysia.
mm-hmm.
Uh, single word, single noun. The single. Yes, this is just for example. Sometimes let's see. Hmm, I have no idea.
So,
Easy word. Hmm,
so that's mean
okay.
you are oftenly use words like taxi, bus, and centra. It is because it's close and same like words in Japanese language. Am I right?
Sorry. Sorry. What did you say?
You said that you are often use words like taxi, bus, and something.
Okay.
So it is because that word is relatable and quite similar to Japanese language. Am I right?
Quite similar to Japanese language. Uh, I think there are no words which can replace this word.
Mm-hmm.
If we replace these words like kamena, coffee, taxi, if
Mm-hmm.
we replace these words into Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
it would be rather difficult words, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Uh, uh, so using the English like this is much easier to
Mm-hmm.
use Japanese. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So last question.
Okay.
Are there any words in English that have
Mm.
different meaning in your country? Give an example.
Mm.
So
So there are many, actually there are many English, which has different meaning in Japan. This is
mhm,
called made in Japan English. Sometimes we call this kind of words as
mhm,
made in Japan English. So this is just for example. So the uh, just for example, laptop,
mhm,
laptop PC. In many cases, we call laptop PC as not PC. Just
mm,
like the figure is very thin, just like notebook. So
mhm.
we call no not PC. Uh,
It's true.
uh, we also call PC as pasokan. This is
Mhm,
because PC means personal computer. So we sometimes call PC as a pasokon, just like air conditioner as aircon. Can you understand
So
my English?
yes.
Okay, there are many, there are some other examples, just for example, office worker or businessman in English, but we call ourselves just like me, office worker as salaryman. Salary means a payment, right? So in Japan, this is we call ourselves as salaryman. The meaning, office worker or business person. Yeah.
So anything else from you?
Anything? For example, gas station or petrol stand, petrol station in America or UK or Malaysia, but we call gas station gasoline stand. A little bit different. Also, roller coaster in English, but we call jet coaster in Japan. This is because we named the word by English by ourselves, our original English.
So
Is it okay for you?
yes. So that's all from me, Mr. Show. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your cooperation, and I'm really happy because you want to help me for this interview session. So I hope you will all your kindness will be replaced by a successful and and good luck for your job.
Thank you too. I was a little bit nervous, but it was good.
Assalamualaikum everyone. So today I would like to present an analysis from my interviewee answer. Let's begin with the first question. How did English first arrive and spread in your country? Mr. Sho said that English first came to Japan in 1600 when English settlers worked with the Japanese Samurai Society. At that time, Japan was a closed country, so people did not use English. After about 250 years later, Japan opened its border especially to Western countries like America. This was when people started learning English, mainly for business and education. Japan's isolation policy made it difficult for English to spread at first. When Japan opened up, it needed to learn English to trade and communicate with other countries. Even then, English was mostly used by scholars and business people, not the general public. Today, English is much more common, but it is still not a daily language for most Japanese. Move on to the next question. How has English learning changed in your country? At first, people learned English mainly for reading and writing because they did not need to speak it. There were very few chances to use spoken English in daily life. Now, speaking and listening are becoming more important. Schools start teaching English at a young age, and more people try to speak it fluently. In the past, Japan focused on reading English books and documents to learn about Western technology and ideas. There was no need to speak English because most communication happened through writing. However, in today's world, speaking English is very useful for travel, business, and international communication. That is why schools are now focusing on teaching speaking and listening skills more than before. Next, let's move to the question number 3. How important is English for people looking for a job or career? Mr. Xue said that many companies prefer workers who can speak English, but it's still possible to get a job without knowing English. In Malaysia, for example, people use English more often, while in Japan, there are fewer chances to use it daily. However, jobs in international companies or tourism often require English skills. English is becoming more important in the job market, especially for global businesses. Many Japanese companies are expanding internationally and they need employees who can communicate in English. Even though not all jobs require English, having English skill gives people better job opportunities, especially in industry like tourism, technology, and customer service. Let's begin with the question number 4. Is English replacing Japanese? Mr. Sho does not think English is replacing Japanese. It is because many Japanese people are not fluent in English and they still use Japanese in their daily life. Even though English is taught in school, most Japanese people still use their native language every single day. English is seen as a useful skill but not something that will replace Japanese. Unlike in some countries where English is a second language, in Japan it's still mainly a foreigner language. So now let's begin with the question number 5. Opinions on learning English. Mr. Sho said that many people in Japan find learning English is a difficult thing because of difference in language structure. There are very few chances to practice under speaking with tourists or foreigners. The Japanese language and English have very different grammar and pronunciation, which make learning English hard for many people. Also, since most people in Japan do not use English daily, they do not get much practice. This makes it difficult to become fluent. Now, let's move to the question number 6. Mixing English with Japanese. Mr. Sho said that Japanese people do not usually mix English with their language because the grammar is very different. Unlike in Malaysia, where people mix English with their native language, in Japan, it is uncommon. This is because Japan's grammar is structured very different from English, making it harder to mix both language in conversation. Let's continue with question number 7. Commonly used English word. Some common English words used in Japan are camera, hotel, bus, and taxi. Many English words are borrowed and used in Japan, especially for technology, food, and modern concepts. These words are often easy to say and understand. Some they have become part of everyday speech. Next, let's begin with the last question. English word with different meaning. Mr. Sho shared example of English words that have different meaning in Japan, such as notebook PC for laptop and jet coaster for roller coaster. Some English words in Japan are changed to fit Japan's culture. These words may sound familiar to English speakers but have different meaning in Japan. This shows how language evolve and adapt to local culture. In conclusion, English has slowly become more important in Japan over time. While it's still not commonly spoken in daily life, more people are learning it for education and job opportunities. Japan is now focusing more on English speaking and listening skills to prepare for the global world. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Alicia binti Shimir from DEC 58. My ID number is SEC23070109. In this video, I will present to you the insights I got from interviewing Mr. Buttini to learn how English has evolved in his country. Mr. Buttini is a 20-year-old male that was born in Dominican Republic. He is currently pursuing his study. Mr. Buttini has provided me interesting insights that has increased my knowledge in the variety of English. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Alia Alicia and I'm from Malaysia. I'm a student from KPMSI. I'm an English communication student. Can I ask you to introduce yourself first?
Yes, I can. My name is Buttini. I'm from Dominican Republic and I'm 20 years old and I'm learning English and I'd like to do this interview.
That's really great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for willing to do the interview with me today.
Yes, you're very welcome.
So I'm going to start with the interview's questions.
Come on, I'm ready.
So, okay, first of all, how did English first arrive and spread in your country?
I think I don't know because that it's a long history. Yes.
Yeah. Can I ask you the second question?
Yeah.
Okay. So, how has English learning changed in your country over time?
I think English not changing in my country. Sorry.
So, does a lot of people speak English in your country?
Okay, English can change the life of people here because changing English is very interesting here and people need to learn English.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So next question.
Yeah.
How important is English for people looking for a job or career in your country?
I think very important because when there is someone that speaks English, uh, he can find a good job in my country.
I see. So moving on to the next question. Do you think English is replacing or complementing your native language?
Sometime because I gotta think in English, and I think that's why that there is.
That's the reason. I see. So what the people in your country think about learning English?
I think people think it's very difficult. People see the English like math. Sometimes they see English difficult, but I don't see English like math because English it's a language, and that's why. Yeah.
I see. Thank you very much. So next question. Have you mixed English with your own language in daily conversation?
I think no always.
Not always. I see. Why not?
Because there's no people there's not a lot of people that speak English, and it's a little strange to
I see. So you don't mix your language with English?
I used to use because it's a good connector.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Yeah. So next question. What are English words that you use often?
Yes, the word drink. In English, drink it is drink, but
Yes.
there is businesses. For example, one bar here, it's named drink. Yes, and drink it's like when it's like when there is one people are drinking, for example, water, but there here when there is a business, for example, bar, they name the bar drink.
I see. That's interesting. Okay, so for our last question, are there any words in English that have different meaning in your country?
Let me think. I think the word full.
Full.
Yes, full. Yes, full. For example, here we can say that is full. In Spanish, eso está full. Full in Spanish es lleno, but we can use full in Spanish, and this word is in English.
Oh, I see. So I think that's all for our interview today. Thank you so much. So let's start with our analysis. For the first question, how did English first arrive and spread in your country? Mr. Bottini had little knowledge of the historical introduction of English in the Dominican Republic. His response suggests that English did not arrive with a dominant or well-documented presence, at least in everyday discussions. This indicates that English spread may have been gradual or influenced by modern globalization rather than a strong historical colonial or political force. For the second question, how has English learning changed your country over time? Initially, Mr. Boutini stated that English had not changed life in his country. However, he later acknowledged that it has played a role in shaping opportunities and interests as more Dominicans are now interested to learn the language. This shift in response highlights an evolving perception. While English may not have caused visible societal transformations, it is becoming increasingly relevant in education, business, and everyday life. The need for English proficiency reflects a growing connection to international markets and globalization. For the third question, how important is English for people looking for a job or career in your country? Mr. Boutini strongly emphasized that English is crucial for job opportunities. He believes that those who speak English have an advantage in securing better jobs than those who do not. This aligns with global level trends where English proficiency opens doors in industries such as tourism, customer service, and international business. His response reinforces the economic value of English and suggests that it is increasingly seen as a necessary skill for professional advancement. For the fourth question, do you think English is replacing or complementing your native language? Mr. Boutini believes that English is at times replacing Spanish, as he occasionally organizes his thoughts in English. This suggests that English is not only learned for communication, but also begins to influence internal thought processes. Such influence is often seen in bilingual speakers and reflects the growing integration of English into everyday life. So for the fifth question, what do people in your country think about learning English? According to Mr. Boutini, many Dominicans find English difficult comparing it to mathematics. This perception suggests that English is seen as a complex skill rather than a natural language acquisition. However, Mr. Boutini personally disagrees with this perspective, viewing English as just another language rather than an overwhelming challenge. While some may struggle with English, others, like him, approach it with curiosity and motivation. Next question. Have you mixed English with your own language in daily conversation? Why? Mr. Boutini rarely mixes English with Spanish because few people around him speak English, and it is considered unusual in Dominican society. However, he mentioned occasionally using the word because in conversations. His response suggests that while Spanglish code switching is not common in the Dominican Republic, minor incorporation of English words do occur. So for the seventh question, what English words do you use often and why? One of the most interesting insights from the interview is Mr. Boutini's frequent use of the word drink when referring to alcohol consumption in a business setting. He attributes this to the influence of a local bar named the Bar Drink. This highlights how English words can enter local vocabulary due to branding, especially in social and commercial environments. It also demonstrates how English is selectively adopted for specific contexts rather than general usage. For the last question, are there any English words that have different meanings in your country? Mr. Boutini mentioned that the word full carries different meanings in Spanish, which is why Dominicans often use it in conversation. While he did not elaborate on the specific differences, his response suggests that certain English words are integrated into Dominican Spanish due to their altered or expanded meanings. In conclusion, Although English does not have a strong historical foundation in the Dominican Republic, its influence is gradually increasing. It is becoming more and more recognized as a useful instrument for financial success. But there are still issues because a lot of Dominicans still think that learning English is hard. The selective use of English vocabulary in everyday speech indicates that English is influencing language usage in particular settings rather than displacing Spanish. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nurin Batrisha binti Zainal and my ID number is SEC 230701000 and here is a little background information about my interviewee. My interviewee name is Lance Steven Doria. Mr. Lance is a 24-year-old from Manila, Philippines, which is a outer circle country. He is currently working as a data engineer at one of multinational companies in Philippines. His insight will help us understand how English is perceived and used in Filipino society.
Hello and good evening to Mr. Lance. Thank you so much for taking your time to participate in this interview. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. So I'm Nurin Batrisha and you can call me Tisha for short. And I'm a student of Diploma in English Communication from Mara Professional College, Sir Iskandar. And today I will be conducting an interview about the factors that influence the globalization of English in your country. Now, may I ask you to briefly introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good evening. My name is Lance Steven Doria. I am 24 years old, and I came from the Philippines. So basically, the land of mangoes and all that type.
I see. Thank you so much, Mr. Lance, for sharing that. So without further adu, let's begin with the first question. The first question is, how did English first arrive and spread in your country?
English actually came around during the Spanish-American War here. So when the Spanish came here, Spanish was already colonizing us for like 400 years, and then the Americans came soon after them. So it was like a little bit like 20 to 30 years before the Americans came by, and we were like subjugated after the Filipino-American War. And after the wars there, the next step, how English came to be, was when one of our founding presidents founded the Philippine Commonwealth. So we were technically a United State, a state from the U.S. So we had U.S. laws. We have U.S. laws, but we have different currency from it. We were still using our own currency at that time, and the main reason that they stuck around with us was we were still a valuable point where in the South Pacific Sea. So especially when the communism was like being spread like in China, Vietnam, and Russia, so they had an anchor point, which is my country. How did English first arrive and spread in your country? It came after the establishment of the Philippine Commonwealth, and soon after it just developed as our second tongue. So technically Tagalog, which is or nationally called is Filipino, is our mother tongue, and then our second tongue is English. We all have other languages, but those two are primarily used like everyday life here.
I see. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Lance. So we'll be moving on to the next question. How has English learning changed in your country over time?
So during the Commonwealth era, English was like a predominantly a class subject. So especially for people who are studying, English was only taught during college level or state college level, but soon as the years came by, it was all going to be a mandatory subject for every level, including English. It's a weird thing because we have kindergarten and primary school. Sometimes it goes in between, but predominantly it's elementary, high school, college. English has been there, like science, math, English. Usually there's like branching of other subjects that is predominantly used like English. For example, I studied in data engineering, so majority of all our textbooks are in English. And as I stated before, English has become part of our native tongue. It's literally our second language. Filipinos are very known for being able to speak English. A lot of Koreans, Japanese, and Chinese students come over here to actually learn English from us because we're very proficient at it. Also, I had to add, like, Filipinos are also one of the people who are very proficient during call center jobs, customer support. A lot of outsourcing requires English, and yeah, pretty much Filipino language, it's very Filipino tongue English has been ingrained into that.
I see. That is an interesting insight. Thank you so much. So we'll be moving on to the third question. How important is English for people looking for a job or career in your country?
That's also another thing. So there's like two ways. Getting a job here also requires a lot of English. You don't have a word for like resume, biodata, or a CV. We just use that. So all of our, especially on high grade like white collar jobs, everything's in English. I'm currently working as a white collar worker. I do documentation, so everything's on English. And then when it comes to like getting a job from here to a different country, also requires English. Basically, English is required, especially on the higher end, especially during like, for example, you want to be a teacher, English is everything. You want to be an engineer, English is everything. There are some jobs, mostly local, who don't even require you to speak English. They don't even require at all being proficient at English, as long as you can speak the local tongue, which is a lot of local tongues, especially we have several different regions. But yeah, you definitely need English if you want a sustainable way of living here.
I see. So the next question is, do you think English is replacing or instead is complementing your native language?
Tagalog, which is Filipino. Tagalog and Filipino are two different things, but in the global stage, it's only one. So Tagalog, especially the local ones, English isn't affecting that. It's more similar to, in some regions, Tagalog is more similar to Malaysian, Indonesian tongue. So there's no difference. But that's the difference between those other regions. The south regions from Manila, everything north is mostly Spanish.
I see.
A lot of our tongue is like how we say our table. Mesa or meja in Spanish is also here. La mesa. It's basically the same thing. So we have a lot of mixed words with Chinese, English, Spanish, mostly Portuguese, and then all the other countries nearby our watery shores. They're all mixed together. So is English replacing or complementing? English is basically being absorbed. So there's not mostly maybe it's more on complementing, because my generation, the next and the previous one, millennials, we basically speak in Taglish, which is Tagalog English. So basically, yeah, it's complementing. It's not really replacing anything. It might be replacing like a couple of minor words that people don't really use nowadays, especially on the local level. But yeah, English is basically complementing our native tongue.
Yes, right. That's interesting. For the next question, what does the people in your country think about learning English?
So it depends on like the demographic you ask for. If you ask an older generation, oh, we don't really need English because we have our own tongue. If you ask a younger demographic, oh, we definitely need English because everything here is on English. Even the news we have, like CNN, we have CNN, and then our own local network. They're all English. We do still speak Tagalog, but majority is still English. So yeah, English is still very important.
So learning English is pretty important in your country. I see.
Definitely.
Let's move on to the next question. So have you mixed English with your own language in daily conversation, and why?
Oh yeah, a bunch of time, because especially my generation, we used to mix like words. We use both English and Tagalog. Both English, Tagalog, and Filipino at the same time in most cases. But this is different. Well, on the local level, especially on the province side, you're not going to try to speak English, because English, on the other hand, is very hard to comprehend for other locals because they didn't have the education for it. So basically, it depends on the educational level of the person. But overall, yes, you do mix them together a lot of times. I do mix them a lot of times. That's my take for it.
So we'll move on to the next question. So what are English words that you use often and why?
Actually, I was thinking the same thing, because mostly the word I default to when something happens is a curse word, but the second next to it is, what is that? What is that? What are you doing? It's always the WH questions. So maybe we could just go with that.
Yeah, I see. And why is that? Is there any particular reasons
It's
you're using that?
mostly rooted on a response because when you grow up watching like YouTubers, they always say the WH question, but what is that? What's happening? What are you doing? So it just becomes a habit for me. It could
I
be
see.
different for other people, but my experience is always the WH question, like what is that, or what's happening? So
I
those
see.
things.
I can relate to that actually. Now, let's move on to the last question of this interview. Are there any words in English that have different meaning in your country? Can you give an example?
We don't really have any words that you take from English and take in a different term. Maybe if it's a slang, maybe that's a different case because in that area, maybe it's not really much as valid. But in other languages, such as Malaysian and Indonesian, we do have uh, different meaning. So, for example, "Salamat pagi." I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. It says "Good morning" to you guys, right? But in ours, I don't. When the first time I heard it, I said, "What do you mean you're thanking a stingray? Like why?" Because salamat means thank you, and
Mm.
pagi literally translates as a stingray. Because
Oh.
that is the I don't know if it's Spanish or the Portuguese side of naming animals. Because we do have a large animals who are like predominantly named after Spanish and then Portuguese,
Mm.
like pating, that's Spanish, and then what was the thing called? Hipon, which is shrimp, that is Portuguese.
I see. Thank you so much for that sharing. That was a great example. I think we are done with our interview. And I would like to thank you again, Mr. Lance, for sharing your insight on this interview. And your response helps me understand the spread of and influence of English in your country. So I appreciate your time and participation. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Now, let's begin with the first question. The first question is, how did English first arrive and spread in your country? According to Mr. Lance, English was introduced to the Philippines during the Spanish-American War, which marked the transition from Spanish rule to American governance. The United States established an educational system where English became the primary medium of instruction, replacing Spanish. This decision significantly influenced how English spread throughout the country. During the early 90s, the Philippine Commonwealth further strengthened the presence of English. As a result, English became the country's second language after Tagalog. Today, it is widely used in education, government, business, and media, making it an essential part of Filipino society. For the next question, I asked Mr. Lance, how has English learning changed in your country over time? Mr. Lance stated that with over 170 languages spoken across different regions of the Philippines, communication can be challenging. English serves as lingua franca, allowing Filipinos from various linguistic backgrounds to communicate effectively, especially in formal settings like education, law, and business. Other than that, English is the primary language of instruction in schools and universities, ensuring that students across the country can access the same educational resources. It is also preferred language for business transaction, legal documents, and corporate communication. However, English does not exist in isolation. Many Filipinos naturally mix Tagalog and English in daily conversation, a linguistic blend known as Taglish. This phenomenon demonstrates how English complement rather than replace native language in the Philippines. For the third question, how important English for people that is looking for a job and career in your country? Mr. Lance stated that in the Philippines, many job requirements include English as a mandatory skill. This is especially true for blue and white collar jobs, where English is needed for communication, reports, and daily tasks. In most companies, tasks and instructions are given in English, making it essential for employees to understand and use the language. Knowing English also provides a better career opportunities and a more sustainable way of living, as it opens doors to a high-paying jobs and international work. Furthermore, English is a key skill for job seekers in the Philippines. It is required in many industries and helps individuals secure better career growth and financial stability. For the fourth question, do you think English is replacing or complementing your native language? From the response of Mr. Lance, English is not replacing the native language but complementing it instead. In regions where Tagalog is spoken, English blends naturally with it. However, in areas with different native dialects, Spanish influence remains stronger. For example, the Tagalog word for table, mesa or meja, is similar to the Spanish la mesa, showing how the language has been influenced by Spanish, English, Chinese, Portuguese, and others. Instead of replacing native languages, English is being absorbed. Many Filipinos speak Tagalog, and English, a mix that has been used for decades. Other than that, English complements the native language by being integrated into daily conversation, education, and work. The use of Taglish proved that Filipino adapt English while still preserving their native language. For the fifth question, what does the people in your country think about learning English? Mr. Lance shares that public opinion on learning English depends on demographics. Older generation prefers speaking their native language, while younger generations see English as more important because it is widely used in their social life. English is also dominant in news channels like CNN and local networks. While Tagalog is spoken, English remains the primary language in media and daily communication, making it essential for many Filipinos. Overall, English is considered important, especially by younger generation, as it is widely used in media, education, and social interaction. The next question that I ask is that, have you ever mixed English with your own language in a daily conversation? Why? Mr. Lance said that younger generation, including himself, often mix Tagalog and English, creating what is known as Taglish. This has become a common way of speaking in cities and urban areas. However, in provincial areas, most locals prefer speaking pure Tagalog because English is harder to understand due to limited education access. The use of English in conversation depends on a person's education level, and those with less exposure to English tend to stick with Tagalog, while others naturally mix both language. Overall, English and Tagalogs are mixed frequently, especially among younger generation and in urban settings. Also, mixing English and Tagalog is common in the Philippines, but its usage varies depending on age, location, and education level. Next, what are English words that you use often? Mr. Lance mentioned that WH questions such as who, what, when, where, why, and how are the most frequently used English phrases in their daily speech. This is because of the media they consume, especially YouTube, where most content creators use WH questions to explain situations. Over time, this exposure has made these phrases a natural part of their everyday language. The influence of media and online content has led many Filipinos, especially younger generation, to commonly use WH question in their daily conversation. For the last question is, are there any words in English that have different meaning in your country? Can you give an example? Mr. Lance explained that while English itself doesn't have many different meanings in the Philippines, some words from other languages can be misunderstood. For example, in Malaysia, selamat pagi means good morning. In English, however, in Tagalog, it sounds like salamat pagi, which could be misunderstood as thank you stingray because salamat means thank you and pagi means stingray in Tagalog. Most language differences in the Philippines are influenced by Spanish rather than English, so there are fewer cases of English words having different meanings. While English words generally keep their meanings in the Philippines, some foreign words can be misinterpreted due to similar sounds in Tagalog. Now we're moving on to the justification. Firstly, the spread of English in the Philippines are introduced during American colonization, which took place during the early 90s. English became a medium of instruction in education section, in which become a mandatory subject in every level. Secondly, the establishment of Commonwealth has resulting English as a lingua franca. English has become a requirement in every section, such as education, business, and formal settings. On the other hand, Taglish, Tagalog, and English is widely spoken in daily conversation among the locals. Next, English proficiency is a key for jobs opportunity as most of the jobs instruction are done in English rather than in Tagalog. Other than that, the globalization and social media reinforces its importance as a second language. Moving on to the next point, from the interview perspective, Mr. Lam recognized that English roles in education and work, as he mentioned, that most of the younger generation prefer to speak English and Taglish in their daily conversation. While in the workplace, he also often receives tasks in English even while communicating throughout the jobs. On the other hand, in the informal settings, amongst the local from different regions, they prefer to speak Tagalog more than English in their daily conversation. This is because the education from this region receive a lot less than the main regions in which resulting in poor education. In conclusion, English is essential for national unity, economic growth, and global integration in the Philippines. Not only that, the United States also recognized this country as one of its states.
Hi and good afternoon, Miss Su. My name is Juni Damia and I am from Malaysia. I am an English communication student from College Professional Mara Seri Iskandar. And first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for joining this interview today, and I am really appreciate your time. So basically, throughout this interview, I would ask you a little bit about English language in your country. So before we start, could you please introduce yourself or tell me a little bit about your background?
Okay. Hi, my name is Yansu, and I'm 24 years old. I was born in Korea and lived in Seoul,
Uh,
but now I'm currently in Australia.
oh, you're working there?
Oh, yeah, working holiday.
All right. So, are you ready for the first question?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So my first question: how did English first arrive and spread in your country?
As I know, after the Korean War,
Okay.
the U.S. Gave the economic and military support
Ah.
to Korea. Yeah. So Korea and U.S. relationship was so deep
Okay.
that led to the widespread use of English. And as Korea's economy grew
Okay.
grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and foreign companies entered Korea.
Ah.
Yeah, so English became widely used.
All right. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
Okay. So, moving on to the next question. How has English learning changed in your country over time?
In the past, English in Korea focused grammar and reading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we learned English for the test.
Oh.
Yeah.
To enter
But
university?
now,
Like the
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But now,
Huh?
communication skills more important.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we then focus on improving listening and speaking abilities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see. All right. And how important is English for people who are looking for jobs or career in your country now?
Oh, English is very important
Oh,
for people looking for jobs.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. My next question is: do you think English is replacing or complementing your native language, your Korean language?
I think it complements each other.
Okay.
Many people use both language in different
Oh,
situation.
okay. Like,
Such as using Korean in daily life
okay.
and English at work.
Oh, English while working. All right. Okay, my next question is, what is your country's general opinion about learning English?
Can you say that again?
All right. My next question is, what is your country's general opinion about learning English?
Koreans have positive attitude
Okay.
learning English.
They are okay with
Yeah.
learning English, like during their studies. So my next question is, have you mixed English with your own language in daily conversation, and why?
It's common. Yeah, it's common to mix English and daily conversation. English, in popular culture such as K-pop,
Okay.
movies, and dramas like that. Yeah, sometimes English words are simpler and easier to express.
And then
Yeah, and
in your daily life, you mix your English and Korean in the conversation, or how? Like, you use all English or like mix it?
yeah, I usually use English.
Okay.
Like for example, hi, bye.
Okay, I see.
Thank you, sorry.
All right.
Yeah, wow, cool.
Oh.
Yeah, like that.
Like that
Yeah,
simple one that we always use.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, because these can convey my feelings faster and simply.
All right, I
More
see.
simple.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. All right. So and what are the English words that you use often, and why you use that word?
In Korea, service.
Sorry, service.
Yeah, service means service. In Korea, service means free offering.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if someone says to you, this is a service, it means you receive it for free.
Oh.
I think English means is service, customer service.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
something
different
like
means Korea.
repeating
Yeah.
stuff, All right.
Yeah.
So
Also.
okay, it's okay. You can continue.
Also, fighting.
Fighting. Okay.
Fighting. Yeah.
Fighting.
Fighting. English is fighting is let's fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in Korea, it's
But
like
in Korea,
yeah.
you can do it. Yeah. Yeah. Fighting. You can do it. Yeah.
I watched that in Korea in K drama so many times. They say fighting.
Yeah. Fighting.
Okay. Okay, but that's like the like just you say like fighting service. That's how it meant lah. In English, fighting is like fight with someone, but in Korean it's like good luck, something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So my last question is: are there any words in English that have different meanings in your country? Like just you said just now, like fighting, service.
Yeah.
Any other words?
I think now. One shot. Do you know one shot?
This?
Yeah. Oh, you know that.
I watch too many K dramas. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like in one shot in English is like one shot in Korea like drink that.
Yeah, drink bottom up.
Oh.
In Korea, bottom up, but in English, one shot like gun.
Yes.
One shot.
Okay. That's actually quite funny. All right. So I think that's all the question from me. Thank you so much for your time and for answering these questions. I am really enjoyed learning about your perspective and experience with English in Korea. So I think that's all from me. I hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Yuni Damia and today I will be presenting an analysis of my interview with Yeon-Soo Kim, a 24-year-old from South Korea. We have discussed how English arrived in Korea, how it has evolved and how its influence on daily life. For the first question, how did English first arrive and spread in your country? Yonsu shared that after the Korean War, the United States provided economics and military support to South Korea. This created a strong relationship between the two countries and led to the widespread use of English. As Korea's economy grew and more foreign companies entered South Korea, English became even more important in business and daily life. The spread of English in Korea was strongly influenced by United States involvement after the war, but it has continued to grow because of globalization. And Korean's economic development and global presence, especially in technology and entertainment, have made English an essential tool for communication and international success. For the second question, how has English learning changed in your country over time? Yoon-soo explained that in the past, English education in Korea focused mostly on grammar and reading. The main goal was to pass university entrance exams. However, today communication skills like speaking and listening are more important. So the way English is taught has changed to focus on practical use. For the third question, how important is English for people who are looking for jobs or careers in your country? According to Yong-soo, English is very important for job seekers in Korea, and many companies require employees to have English skills, as we know that having strong English skills can open up to more career opportunities. For the fourth question, do you think English is replacing or complementing your native language? Based on Yeon-soo's answer, Yeon-soo believes that English is not replacing Korean, but rather complementing it. Many Koreans use both languages in different situations. For example, they use Korean in everyday life and English language in workplace. For the fifth question, what's your country's general opinion about learning English? Yeon-soo explained that Koreans have a positive attitude toward learning English, as it is considered an important skill for education, work, and also international communication. For the sixth question, have you mixed English with your own language in daily conversations and why? Yeon-soo mentioned that it is common for Koreans to mix English with their language in daily conversation. This is influenced by pop culture, for example, K-pop, K-movies, and K-dramas. And she also said that some English words are more easy to express emotions quickly. For example, hi, bye, thank you, sorry, wow, and cool. Next question is, what are the English words that you use often and why? You also give examples of English words that are commonly used in Korea but have different meanings. For instance, in Korea, service means something free, while in English, it refers to customer service. Another example is fighting, which in English, fighting means a physical fight, but in Korea, it is used to encourage someone, like saying, you can do it. And to the last question, are there any words in English that have different meanings in your country? And could you give an example? So Yeon-soo said that one shot. The word one shot is another example. In Korea, one shot means to drink everything in one go, like bottom ups. But in English, one shot usually refers to shooting a gun. And this shows how English words are used differently in Korea. From Yeon-soo's response, we can see that English in Korea is not just for communicating with foreigners but also for career success. This aligns with global trends where English is becoming essential for economic growth and international interactions. However, despite English being widely used, the Korean English remains strong and many English words have been adapted to fit Korean culture. In conclusion, English plays a significant role in South Korea, especially in education, jobs, and also daily conversation. While Korea remains the dominant language, English is widely used and has influenced the way Koreans communicate. And some English words have also taken on different meaning in Korean culture. This interview provided valuable insight into how English is evolving in different parts of the world. And I think that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, and a very good evening, Mr. Aditya. Before we get started, I would like to say thank you for helping me doing my assignment project. Before we get started with the interview session, let us introduce ourselves first. So my name is Fadini Shazwani. I am from Malaysia and I am 20 years old and currently taking diploma in English communication. So what about you? Start with the interview question?
Yes.
So,
sure.
How did English first arrive and spread in your country?
English first arrived in Indonesia during the colonial era when British traders and missionaries came to the region. However, it didn't spread widely at the time since Dutch was the dominant foreign language due to Dutch colonization. But then English became more significant use in Indonesia after Indonesia independence, especially in education, business, and global communication.
I see. So now it's commonly used in your country.
Yes, now it's common use.
So for the next question, how has English learning changed in your country over time?
Over time, English learning in Indonesia has evolved significantly. In the past, only a few schools offer English lessons, like private school. But now it is not private school, but public school. English lesson is a mandatory subject in most of school in Indonesia. The rise of technology, social media, and globalization has also made English more accessible for people of Indonesia.
I see. So English now has become the mandatory subject, not just in private but also government school.
Yes.
So for the third question, how important is English for people who are looking for a job or career?
English is important, especially if you are choosing a profession. Not just in Indonesia, but maybe in Malaysia as well, because so many multinational companies require English proficiency nowadays. And even local business prefer employees who can communicate in English as well. So yeah, it's important that if you can speak English, you can widely opportunities, not just in your country, but you can go to
abroad, right?
Abroad, yeah.
I also agree with that. I think English is very important now because many people use English, right?
Yeah.
So next question, do you think English is replacing or complementing your native language?
I would say English is complementing rather than it's replacing our own first language. Many people use English in daily conversation, especially in business, technology, and pop culture. However, bahasa it remains the primary language for formal communication and national identity. So yeah.
So you think English is complementing your native language, right?
Yes.
So for the next question, what your country people think about learning English?
Most of Indonesian people nowadays is recognize the importance of learning English. Some people feel excited and motivated to learn it. All this find it challenging in urban area like big city like Jakarta and Bali, especially in Bali because English is common use in Bali because so many foreigners came to Bali for vacation or maybe work something like that. So yeah, but in the rural area like the city I've stayed on, English is still not common use like in a big city. So yeah.
So Indonesian people in urban areas use more English than people who are from rural areas, right?
Yeah.
For the next question, have you mixed English with your own native language in daily conversation?
Sometimes I use mix bahasa in English at the same time, but I'm not using it in formal way. Sometimes I use English in formal way.
English during formal setting, right?
Yeah.
I see. So what are the English words that you often use?
Sometimes I use a few words for my daily work, like meeting, deadline, update, tax. Once again, maybe deadline, I've been saying, already said event.
So it is like connected with technological terms, right?
Yes.
So for the last question, are there any words in English that have different meaning in your country? Can you give an example?
Yes, and I can give you an example. The word is air. In English, it means the invisible gas we breathe now. But in Indonesia, air, we pronounce air. It means water.
It is same as Malaysia as well.
Yeah, it's similar with Malaysia because we're using Melayu, right? So sometimes it will be make a confused for example when they come to Indonesia or Malaysia when they buy some water and there is some labels like air which means it's bottle of water or air panas which means water.
It is quite confusing, right? For people. So that's all for the question. We are done. Thank you so much for helping me. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. Thank you.
So, hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Fatini Shazwani binti Muhammad Pavira. My ID number is SEC 23070023 and I am from College Professional Mara Sri Iskandar. My interviewee is from Indonesia. His name is Aditya Bintang. He is 22 years old and he works as a mobile developer.
So from the first question, how did English first arrive and spread in your country? The response that I received provided by the Indonesian interviewee gives a basic but generally accurate explanation. The interviewee states that English first came to the country during the colonial era through British traders and missionaries. However, he said that English was not widely spoken at that time because Dutch was the dominant foreign language, and Indonesia was under Dutch rule for quite a long time. So Dutch was primary language used in administration and education back then. But he also mentions that English became more significant after the Indonesian independence. However, he did not explain like how or why English became widely used after independence. For me, I think he could have provide more example or like more information, and he can be clear with the sentence structure. He could have mentioned factors like why English became widely spoken after independence, like for example, globalization, influence of media, and government like promoting English through education. That could have been included in the answer so that it can be more informative. Overall, the response provides a good starting, but it needs better structure or like more detailed information to fully explain how English was spread in Indonesia. So moving on to the question 2, I asked him, how has English learning changed in your country over time? and he said that English learning in Indonesia has changed over time. And he explained like in the past, only private school taught English lesson, but now it is a mandatory subject in all schools, including government school. So this shows that English has become more important in education field. However, the response could include more reasons for why these changes happen. Like for example, he could have mentioned that it is because of the influence of international business in Indonesia, and because of that, it increased the demand for English speakers. So it is necessary for all to study English in school. And not only that, but he could have said that the rise of tourism in Indonesia has encouraged more people to speak English or learn English. I think the response that I received is good, but it could be improved by adding or story how English has changed over time, like how and why. He could have provide more example and give like a detailed one. And moving on to the question number 3, I asked how important is English for people who are looking for a job or career, and the response effectively highlight the importance of English for job seekers. And the response effectively highlight how importance of English in not just in Indonesia but also like in Malaysia or other countries as well. He also mentioned that nowadays many companies like international companies requires employees that can speak English, like even basic one, at least know how to speak English. And even local businesses prefer someone that can speak English. So this shows that how English has become key requirement for modern job market. Not only that, but he also emphasizing the advantages of knowing English. He mentioned that English can open up more job opportunities, not just in one country, but if you are someone who are fluent in English, you will have a better chances for like working with international companies or maybe like other countries as well. Not only that, but he also mentions Malaysia. So this adds a broader perspective. So this shows that not just in Indonesia, English is important, but other countries as well. Overall, the response gives a clear and realistic explanation of why English is valuable for career. And maybe it could add like specific example so that the main idea will convey more, the message will be more understandable and simple. So moving on to the question number 4, do you think English is replacing or complementing your native language? And he responds that he said that English is complementing rather than replacing, because many people use English in daily conversation, especially in business, technology, and so on. Actually, this is a valid point because English is, as we know, English is widely used in professional and digital space, while the native language remains dominant in cultural or like casual setting. One strength of the response is he knows that when to use English and when to use native language, so he can differentiate the usage of language in different settings or different contexts. However, the response could be improved by like he could include like more example. For instance, he could have mentioned how bilingualism is becoming more common. People now always mixing and switching between their native language and English, depending on the situation. So all in all, he agrees that English is complementing their native language rather than replacing. So next, moving on to the question number 5, what your country people think about learning English. So he said that most of Indonesians recognize the importance of learning English. People feel excited and some find it challenging for like people in urban areas like big city like Jakarta or Bali, especially in Bali because English is common use in Bali because many foreigners come to travel to Bali, right, for vacation. So yeah, some find it challenging, but some find it fine. So this shows that each people have different experience while learning English. He gives a great example because he mentions Bali, right? So Bali is a good example because it is a popular tourist destination and many locals need to use English to communicate with their visitors. And he also talks about the difference between rural area and urban areas because in cities, in urban areas, people more like use English more rather than rural areas. So this shows that where people live can affect how they see English learning. However, he did not mention like why people find it challenging, like how they address the issue. Yeah, he could have mentioned the reason why people like find it challenging. Next, moving on to the question number 6. Have you mixed English with your own native language in daily conversation? And he responds that yes, he used it, English and Bahasa Indonesia at the same time. But he said that he's not using it too often. Like he only used it when he was working, like in a formal settings. But in a casual settings, he only used Bahasa Indonesia when like hanging out with friends. Yeah, he does not use English. So this shows that they see English as more suitable for professional settings, while their native language is more natural for casual conversation. So one good point in the response is that he explains how people choose their language based on the situation. Many bilingual speakers do this, that they only use English when at workplace to communicate better, especially if their job involves international business. On the other hand, they are more comfortable using their native language when they are with friends or family. Overall, the response clearly explains how the interviewee use both language at the same time. Like he can differentiate when to use Bahasa Indonesia and when to use English. But he could add more details about why English is mixed with Bahasa Indonesia so that the explanation would be better. Next, moving on to the question number 7. What are the English words that you use often? And he replies that sometimes he uses few words for his daily work like words meeting, deadline, task, even like it is like connected with technological terms. However, the response is very short and does not give much explanation. The interviewee lists a few English words, like very few, like the word I've said before, and he said that it is connected in technology but do not explain why they use them instead of Bahasa Indonesia words. So one problem with the response is that he does not give enough details, like he does not say if the word that he mentions are commonly used by other workers as well or only him prefer to use it. it would be more helpful to know if that words do not have good translation in Bahasa Indonesia or if they just sound more professional. However, the response could mention more English words that people use in daily life, not just at work. Like many people use English words when they talking about social media, entertainment or daily activities. So by providing this example, it would give a better idea of how English is mixed with Bahasa Indonesia. So all in all, the response gives a basic answer, but maybe could be more details, like explain why these words are used and giving more examples. So moving on to the last question, which is question number 8. Are there any words in English that have different meaning in your country? And he said yes, and the example that he gives is air, A-I-R. In English, it means invisible gas that we breathe, but in Indonesia, it pronounced as air. It means water. He also explains how this can be interesting for foreigners, especially when they see words like air mineral, which is a bottle of water, or air panas, which means hot waters, on the labels. This makes the response easy to understand and relatable. And one good thing about the response is that it connects language differences to real life situation. Like he provides a situation when foreigner people see labels like air mineral or air panas. So yeah, it is great because he provides the situation. So these small differences make communication more exciting and show how rich languages can be. And he also mentions that Malaysia is same as well, like pronounce air as air, which means water. However, he only provide one example, which is air. I think he could provide more because there's many words that can be confused. So, but he only provides one example, but that is fine because he also provides the situation. So it is more easy to understand. Overall, the response is straightforward and clear. It gives a fun example of how words can have different meanings in different language. This shows that language learning is enjoyable and fun.
So English in Indonesia spread through education, globalization, and economic demand. Initially introduced during the colonial era, it became more significant after independence, especially in school, business, and technology. Back then, it was once limited to only private school, but now it is a mandatory subject in all schools, with technology and social media making it more accessible. English is crucial for jobs, especially in tourism, like areas in Bali, and is often mixed with Bahasa Indonesia in professional settings, but rarely in casual conversation. While urban areas see more English use, rural areas still rely on Bahasa Indonesia. Despite its growing importance, English complements rather than replace the native language, remaining a valuable tool for global communication rather than a primary language.
Now, let us discuss the similarities between Korea, Indonesia, and Japan. In all three countries, English is recognized, but the extent of language mixing varies significantly. The use of English depends on context, necessity, and how easily it integrates into the native language. However, there's also differences between these countries. In Korea, English is frequently mixed with Korean, especially in daily speech. Emotional expressions like wow, cool, and thank you. This mixing is socially natural and widely accepted. In contrast, Indonesia occasionally mixes English, primarily in formal settings such as work and professional communication. However, it is avoided in casual conversations and used only when necessary. Meanwhile, Japan rarely mixes English with Japanese due to major differences in grammar structures. As a result, English and Japanese are kept separate, and mixing is generally avoided because it is difficult to integrate smoothly. Now, onto outer circle countries, which are Dominican Republic and Philippines. Both Dominican Republic and the Philippines incorporate English words into daily conversation, but the extent of mixing varies. In both countries, the likelihood of mixing English depends on education and exposure. In the Dominican Republic, English mixing is rare because fewer people speak English. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, those in urban areas and with higher education levels tend to mix English more often, while people in rural areas with limited education prefer to speak Tagalog exclusively. So, how different are these both countries? The Dominican Republic and the Philippines differ in how they mix English with their native languages. In the Dominican Republic, English-Spanish mixing is uncommon, whereas in the Philippines, Tagalog-English mixing is very common, especially among younger generations. Additionally, in the Dominican Republic, speaking English within Spanish conversation is considered unusual, as the culture leans toward keeping languages separate. In contrast, in the Philippines, switching between English and Tagalog is normalized, and Taglish is widely accepted in casual speech.
So for the similarities in expanding countries, Japan, Indonesia, and Korea initially focused on reading, writing, and grammar, mainly for exams, with little emphasis on speaking and listening. So over time, all three countries shifted towards teaching English for communication, making it more practical. Technology and social media also play a role in spreading English, especially in Indonesia. So for the differences, Indonesia made English mandatory in all schools, while Japan and Korea did not do that. And the motivation for learning also different. Japan and Korea focus on academic and exams, while Indonesia emphasized job opportunities and global communication. Next, for the outer circle, the similarities, both the Dominican Republic and the Philippines use English as a second language and recognize its importance in education and daily life. People in both countries have more exposure to English compared to expanding circle countries, and it is commonly used in school and social settings. For the differences, in the Dominican Republic, English is useful but not fully integrated into daily conversation. In contrast, the Philippines has a stronger English-speaking environment with influence of media like YouTube. It influences how people speak, especially in common phrases like WH question.
Now I will talk for the question number 3. First of all, when we compare English usage in expanding and outer circle countries, we can see both similarities and the differences in how the language is integrated into daily life. Now, I will focus on lexical aspects, especially how English is borrowed, adapted, and used in different contexts across Japan, Korea, Indonesia, Philippines, and the Dominican Republic. For the expanding countries, Japan, Korea, and Indonesia, the similarities, English is recognized in all three countries, but its integration into daily life varies. Borrowed words from English exist in all three, but they often take on different meanings. For example, in Korea, service means something given for free, while in Japan, notebook PC refers to a laptop, and in Indonesia, air actually means water. English is also more commonly used in professional settings rather than casual conversation. Last, media and globalization play a role in English exposure, but each country adapts it in unique ways. For the differences, in Korea, English is frequently mixed into daily speech, especially due to the influence of pop culture such as K-pop, K-dramas, and K-movies. Words like fighting for encouragement and service for free gifts are commonly used. The younger generation usually mix Korea and English, making it a natural part of speech. In Indonesia, however, English is mainly used in formal settings like business and work rather than in casual conversation. Borrowed English word exists, but some takes on unique meanings, like how air actually means water in Bahasa. Meanwhile, in Japan, English and Japanese are kept more separate because of a major grammar differences. The Japanese language structure makes it harder to mix the two. Pronunciation challenges also makes mixing less common. Instead, borrowed words are adapted into katakana like notebook PC for laptop. Now for the outer countries, Philippines and the Dominican Republic. For the similarities, in both the Philippines and the Dominican Republic, English is widely used in education, government, and jobs. Urban areas tend to use more English, while rural areas rely more on their native languages. Borrowed English words also exist in both countries, but they are used differently based on the cultural context. Now for the differences, in the Philippines, English is naturally mixed with Tagalog, forming what is known as Taglish. For example, a common phrase is, "Can you make tusok to soak the fishbowl?" Young people frequently use English in both formal and informal settings. English fluency is also a common job requirement. On the other hand, in the Dominican Republic, mixing English and Spanish is not as common because English exposure is lower. English is mostly used in workplaces and for international communication rather than in daily life. Additionally, English fluency is not widespread, making it more of a second language rather than a mixed language like in the Philippines. In conclusion, while all these countries use English in some way, the level of integration and mixing varies depending on cultural influences, language structure, and exposure. Countries like Korea and the Philippines tend to mix English naturally, while Japan and the Dominican Republic keep English more separate due to the language barriers and lower exposure. Thank you.
Now we're going to talk about the usage of English in outer circle. So, in the Philippines was colonized by the United States in the early 90s. Since then, English has been widely used in the country. One of the biggest influence is in the education sector, where English is a mandatory subject in most regions. As a result, many younger generation have grown up using English in their daily conversation. However, instead of speaking only English or only Tagalog, many Filipinos mix both language, and this is called Taglish, a combination of Tagalog and English. Taglish is a very common, especially in the cities where people are used to switching between the two languages. On the other hand, in more rural areas or among older generations, people tend to speak more Tagalog since they did not receive as much English education. This creates a difference in how English is used across different parts of the country. In conclusion, the English language has played a big role in the Philippines due to historical influence and education. While younger people use more English or Taglish in their daily life, older generation and people in rural areas prefer to speak in Tagalog. This unique blend of language makes communication in the Philippines diverse and interesting. Next, as for Dominican Republic, unlike some other countries, English is not widely spoken in the Dominican Republic. One of the main reasons is that English arrived late and did not spread throughout the country. So because of this, it is not commonly used in daily conversation. And most people primarily speak Spanish, which is the official language. And however, even though English is not widely spoken, it is still very important in certain areas. Many job opportunities in the Dominican Republic prefer or require employee to speak English. And those who are fluent in English have a better chance of getting higher paying jobs, especially in tourism, business, and also international company. Despite this, most of the population still communicates in Spanish, and English remains a secondary language rather than a common one. In conclusion, while English is not commonly used in daily life in the Dominican Republic, it is still important skill for job opportunities, and learning English can provide a better career prospect even though it is not widely spoken in the country. Now moving on to the usage of English in expanding circle. In Japan, Japan began learning English during colonization and it was introduced in school as a mandatory subject. In the early years, the focus was mainly on reading and writing with little emphasis on speaking. As time passed, English started being used more in professional settings and became an important job requirement. However, in daily life, most Japanese people still prefer to use their native language because many find English difficult to learn. In conclusion, English play a significant role in education and work in Japan, but it is not commonly used in everyday conversation. Japanese remain the dominant language in their daily life. The next one is Indonesia. English spread in Indonesia due to colonization and later became mandatory in education. As in today, English proficiency is a key requirement for many jobs, especially in business and technology. In tourist destination, English is widely used to communicate with visitors. However, in other regions, Bahasa Indonesia remain the dominant language in daily life. To sum up, English play an important role in education, careers, and tourism in Indonesia, but Bahasa Indonesia is still the primary language for locals. And the last one is Korea. So in Korea, English is spread due to globalization, increasing its demand in professional settings. English proficiency is crucial for job seekers, especially in business and education. English is also influential in pop cultures, as seen in K-pop, movies, and dramas, leading many Koreans to mix English into daily life conversation. In the past, English education focused mainly on grammar and reading for university entrance exams. Today, there is more emphasis on speaking and listening to improve communication skill. Despite its importance in global and professional contexts, Koreans still rely on their native language in everyday life. As for that, English play a key role in education, careers, and pop culture in South Korea, but Korea remains the dominant language. But remains the dominant language for daily interaction.
So let's begin to the next part, which is summary of finding. Through our analysis, we can see that English used differently across country, depending on cultures and society influence. Let's break this down into key points. So let's begin with the key point number 1, borrowing, localized meaning, and hybrid expression. English words are borrowed and adapted, sometimes taking on new meanings in different countries. For example, in Korea, service means free gift, while in Japan, notebook PC refer to a laptop. In Indonesia, air actually means water, showing how words can be repurposed in a local context. Next point, outer circle countries use English more fluently in daily life. In the Philippines, English is deeply embedded in daily conversation. The mixing of English and Tagalog, known as Tanglish, is common with a phrase like, "Can you make tusuk tusuk the fishball?" Many job requirements emphasize English fluency, making it necessity rather than just an additional skill. Meanwhile, in the Dominican Republic, English is used mainly for work and international communication, but not as much in daily casual conversation. Next, expanding circles country use more localized English word and phrase. Korea frequently mix English with Korean influenced by K-pop and drama. Words like fighting mean encouragement are commonly used. However, Indonesia keep English mostly within professional setting like business and education rather than everyday conversation. Japan maintain a strong separation between Japanese and English due to grammar differences, often adapting borrowed words into katakana to fit their pronunciation system. These findings show how English is just not a single uniform language. It is shaped and adapted uniquely by each country. So now let's begin to the next part, which is reflection. From our research, we can see that English is not a fixed or static language. It is constantly evolving and adapting to local cultures. Here's what we have learned. First, English as a dynamic language. The way English is spoken varies based on each country's social, cultural, and historical background. In some places, it becomes part of daily communication, while in others, it remains formal or professionalism. English as more than just a global language as a second point. It is not just a tool for international communication, but also a way for people to express their local identity, whether it's Tanglish in the Philippines, Konglish in Korea, or English word adapted into Japanese katakana. Every country adds its own flavor. The future of English. In the point number 3, with globalization, technology, and media influence, English will be continues to evolve. Each country will keep modifying it in their own way, proving that language is a living, breathing aspect of culture. In conclusion, understanding these different help us appreciate how diverse and adaptable language can be. English is not just a universal language, it is a reflection of the people who use it. So I think that's all from our group. Thank you so much.